All right. Just to confirm, we do have Councilor Bruin on the line with us as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Councilor Bruin, you can hear us all right?
Yes, sir.
Echoey, echoey. Okay, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting for October the 10th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order, please, and ask for the adoption of the agenda. Councilor McLean?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adopts the agenda as amended to allow for the opportunity to undertake closed session items prior to the timing of delegations at 5 p.m.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Bruin?
In favor.
All right, thank you. Carried unanimously, thank you. Let's throw that under here. So we got that for another go around. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 3, public hearings, no public hearings. Item adoption minutes, item 4.1 minutes, regular council meeting, September 25th, 2023. Mr. Tebow.
Minutes are in front of council. Administration has nothing to add for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make that motion? Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a recommendation that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on September 25th, 2023 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councilor Bruin?
In favor.
All right, thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 5, no business arising. Item 6, bylaws. Item 6.1, proposed residential tax incentive bylaw 16/2023. Mr. Tebow.
So we've got Amy here who will come forward and she'll speak to this residential tax incentive bylaw. If council recalls, it's very similar to the tax incentive bylaw that we had on the commercial side of things.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Amy.
Hello, good afternoon. So we're excited to present you with the proposed residential tax incentive bylaw. It's meant to be applied to all new residential properties in the town, including but not limited to new single-family homes, new manufactured homes, multi-unit developments, including anything from duplexes to apartment buildings, mixed-use developments, and the creation of secondary suites. The bylaw is meant to be modular in fashion, as you'll see from the 3 separate schedules at the back. So at any point, if any one type of housing becomes oversubscribed in the program, we can stop that one but continue the other 2 types of housing. So the first type of housing on Schedule A allows for single family and new manufactured homes, of course, increasing the housing and inventory in the community. The second type is legal secondary suites. So in encouraging the community to create secondary suites on or in their properties, it will open more rental spaces. The suites would need to be legal to qualify and could include, but are not limited to, basement suites, carriage houses, and detached suites. And the third type of housing is multifamily and mixed-use developments, allowing for the growth of affordable rental spaces in smaller footprints. For mixed-use developments, of course, the residential portion could apply through this bylaw, and the commercial portion could apply through our investment incentive bylaw. After researching many communities, we took a similar approach to many like Brooks and Fort Macleod, who have a similar 4-year tax exemption program for residential, which also very closely mirrors our commercial incentive, the investment incentive bylaw. So it would allow for a 4-year municipal tax exemption, 100% the first year following occupancy, then 75, 50, and 25% in the 4th year. So we're hoping this will encourage the growth of more housing options in the community. So what questions can I answer?
All right, thank you. Councilor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you for your report, Amy. Can you explain oversubscription on a particular segment? How do you limit that, please?
We don't have a particular way to limit it. It would be up to council to say we have had too many single family and new manufactured homes. We're not going to offer it on this portion of the incentive anymore.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, you bet.
Single-family dwellings that are present under construction, would they fall under the bylaws we did before with commercial, or can you give us an indication how many there would be, please?
I don't know how many there would be. Ones that we did put in the notes on there that we would like to present the same kind of thing we did with the investment incentive bylaw. So once this is passed, residences that are under construction but not yet finished would get 2 or 3 years of the incentive like we did for the investment incentive bylaw. But I don't have a number of housing stats, or it would really determine on how many would apply for the program.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wanted to clarify, this only applies to new inventory, is that correct? So it wouldn't apply to, say, if somebody had an apartment building and they wanted to renovate all of their apartments and maybe increase the assessment value, would that apply?
No, just new.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How about, you mentioned basement suites?
Yes.
That would apply to that, though, would
Yes.
it not?
Yep.
Is that, if they're already in existence but not complying,
Yes. Then they can become, actually, I don't know the answer to that. I will have to find out.
please?
We would have to decide, well, I guess it would be up to you to decide if you would like that. So if they have one that's not compliant and they make it legal, if we would include that, or whether we would leave it out. So just a new one. Good question.
Oh, boy, okay. That adds a little twist to this, doesn't it? Councillor Sorensen.
I think they would keep it under wraps and just propose it's a new addition. I think this is very attractive to our community and to spearhead growth in the residential section. And yeah, I would be in favor of this incentive bylaw.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Someone prepared to make the first required motion? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council gives first reading to proposed bylaw 16-2023, being the residential tax incentive bylaw as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Action items, item 7.1, 2024 proposed capital budget. Mr. Thibault.
Mr. Orwa is going to lead this discussion. In front of you, we gave you some handouts, and those are the details around what was provided in the actual package of each capital project. So John will lead us through it, but this is your capital project budget to do with as you will.
All right, thank you, Mr. John Orwa. Welcome.
Good afternoon, His Worship and members of council. Before you here, we have the proposed 2024 capital project listing with possible funding. I say possible because we are not very sure yet of how much is out there that we can receive. Now, as Mr. Thibault has mentioned, there's some duotangs that have been passed around, and in those duotangs, you'll find each and every project listing. There's a one-pager in there that provides a project description and the rationale for the need. Now, my colleagues behind me will be coming to put a showcase why they need those projects, and I hope they'll be grilled accordingly. Now, before they come forward, I think I just want to mention one or two things on the funding side. Now, we are estimating about, in 2024, approximately 851,000 to come from MSI, which of course is being replaced by LGFF. That is the local government fiscal framework. And for your information, when we were up there with Mr. Thibault, we tried reaching out to the grant advisors, and they're still not very sure on the methodology to use. So it's still out there, and they don't know exactly what needs to happen. That's why we are saying possibility of funding. But what the assurance we got was we are going to get basically what we got last year, 2022, which is the 851, and maybe something else on top. Now, the same thing, we also followed up with the federal gas tax, because as you're aware, it's been moved again, restructured. It's now called the Canada Community Building Fund. Again, that one, they were also not very sure of what we might get, but we were told we are going to get most likely the minimum of what we got last year. Now, with that, having said that, so 2023, definitely MSI goes. And then the LGFF comes into place. One other thing that I also noticed when we were questioning them up there is The MSI that we got in 2022 was based on, remember everything is per capita, was based on 2019 census, which I think that was too low. Because definitely the census after that reveals the population went up. Now, if at all they fail to get the proper methodology, they might get back to per capita for LGFF. So that is just briefly on the funding side, and I think I'll be talking about possibility of long-term debt after my colleagues have presented their case. So now, moving forward, I think if you can bring for me the listing, please. Yeah, that one. Maybe you can magnify it a little bit. Maybe you can. Too big, you might shrink it a little bit. One something. So basically, we'll be following this listing, but each and every project you see there is listed in your duotang. Now, they have given us project description and the need why they think the projects are necessary at this point. So we'll just follow through, starting from information technology, and we'll just go down the list. So I'll call upon the IT manager to present his first case.
All right.
Worship,
Thank
Member of
you.
Council.
Al.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.
So IT is proposing 4 capital projects this year, for 2024. Our first project is annual computer replacement. That's every year project. We replace portion of our equipment based on lifespan. This year, we're expecting 162,000 for that project. Diamond upgrade, that's our financial software. So to jump to the latest version of the finance software, so we hire the companies that do the support to do the upgrade for us. And we do that every 2 years. We have servers upgrade that we do every 3 years. So we will upgrade our email server, SharePoint, and System Center. Some of our Microsoft servers will jump to the latest version, which we are hoping to go to Exchange Online. So we have our email on the cloud, our SharePoint on the cloud. And the last project is downtown Wi-Fi improvement. We've been having a lot of problems with the downtown Wi-Fi, and we're spending so much time from my staff to fix it. So we are proposing to purchase new equipment for the downtown Wi-Fi and improve the signal, high-speed internet, and we are proposing 25,000 for that project. That's all I have for 24. If council have any questions, happy to answer.
All right. Thank you, Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Downtown Wi-Fi, does it get used?
Yes, and we get a lot of complaints about it.
Oh, really? We do? Like, how can you access it? Like, everywhere downtown?
We have it on 48, the main street in the Confederation Park, and behind the Confederation Park for the senior center as well.
Oh, okay.
Just to clarify, the seniors make great use of it also, and when it's not operational, we certainly hear about it. So they miss it. So that's great to stay on top of that all. Thank you. All right, Councilor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would this also be required during celebrations like Cornfest? The public uses it down in the park?
Any celebration in the Confederation Park, yeah, it will be covered. We have access point all over the park, and people use it either during the summer or during celebration. And we also been working with TELUS to put some cell boosters that has no impact on our budget. That's from TELUS, and they're working on that to help us during the Cornfest with the amount of visitors we get.
If I can.
Sure.
Yeah, because I recall that one year that it was just, you know,
Jammed,
quite the thing. So this year I didn't notice any
Well,
flaws.
they are not
yeah.
done yet. They're still working on putting the cell boosters up on the top of our building and the recreation building, and hopefully by next year we will have that ready to go.
Yeah, I was just commenting that I didn't notice any problems, but I'm not the 1-800 number that everyone calls either. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Al? All right. Thank you, Al.
Thank you very much, Al. So the next one will be going to the police. And of course, The ones for the police, as you know, goes through the commission, but I requested the chief just to come in case maybe there's any question that might come up from council for him to answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief.
There are 4 items that were brought before the commission at our last meeting for their recommendation through to council associated to requirements for policing services. They're before you in your booklet, and I'm not sure if any of you have any specific questions about any of them, but I'm here to answer any that you may have.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is a radio/voice recorder, and then what's the difference between that and a radio console?
Okay, so our console is a piece of software and hardware that contains the connection between our talk groups and the AFRAX first responder radio system. The console and the software and the hardware is required for that interface so that we can talk to all of the emergency services that we provide dispatch support to. So that would be the 7 fire departments, the Taber Police Service, and the multiple community peace officer programs that we dispatch with. A radio recorder records the radio transmissions that go over that system, and they are 2 separate pieces of software and hardware.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. The radio console, was that the original radio console when the building was built?
No.
No, it didn't.
So the original console that we had was not a software solution, actually. It was a physical. If you remember it had all those dials on it. We've since replaced that once, and we've actually added a second console several years ago. I think I came before you, sir, with a special RFD for a second station console. So this is a replacement of the second item that was purchased, not the first.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, you bet.
Yeah, it says it's reached its end of life.
Right.
It doesn't last very long, or what's going on?
Well, as with any software or with any hardware, they do have recommended ends of life associated to, that's why we have evergreening programs associated to all of our computers. And unfortunately, this is one of those items. And, there's no crystal ball to say when it could go, but it's recommended that they are evergreened for our best so that we can be in the least amount of risk possible as an organization with regards to our radio communications.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, no, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. My condolences as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think the next should be fire. So the fire chief would present the.
Chief?
Get graded all right away. Thanks, Mayor, Council. So what we have is probably the smallest ask, but the largest in price. What we have in front of you today is the conversation we've been having since 2017 when we originally bought the ladder truck, which was to combine the pumper and the rescue as to one. We knew that these units would be coming to their end of life as they were hitting their FUS rating, the Fire Underwriters Insurance Rating, which allows us to support insurance rating for both business and residential. And this one, the pumper unit, it hits its 20-year category this year. And after that, we get another opportunity to have 5 years of extension, and each year having to apply. But why I'm in front of you today, as we are moving forward, that these trucks and apparatus are anywhere from 24 months to 48 months in purchase time, which would come to its complete end of life once we put the purchase order in. Our other desire is to combine these 2 units into one and allocating only 1 unit, lowering the maintenance cost, lowering the entire cost of purchase. As if we were to replace these individually, the cost would be quite a bit higher. Our hope would be to lower that cost by only going down to 1 unit. So we're sitting at the cost now as 1.1. As things have been going up since we've initially talked, many of these steel and engine prices and vehicle prices have gone up, so we have increased the price from what you've seen in the past on our capital budgets for the last almost 6 years. This has increased, but this is a reflection of the proper pricing as of today. So I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Chief. Councillor McLean.
I have a lot of questions.
Excellent.
Well, not for you, I just overall. So is it a problem to go down to one truck?
Yes, you end up, your fire underwriter's insurance would grade you. Your grading would go up, and it would cost both the business and the residential cost on their insurance grading. So if you did do that, the possibility of actually being able to deal with a fire would really cause you some challenges, and the possibility of losing fire insurance rating, costing the business or homeowner money annually would be a factor.
Right. Sorry, follow up?
Sure.
So you're just saying that the backup engine in the current rescue truck, you're wanting to make it just into one truck, is that right?
Yeah, so what we're doing
But we
is,
still will have two?
no, you'd only have one.
Oh, we'd only have
So
one.
what you're gonna end up on your fleet, you would have a rescue pumper combination. So instead of having
Right.
a rescue truck and a pumper apparatus, you put them into one, reducing all the apparatus equipment into one and making all the manpower go into one. So if you did go to a call, that one unit carries all the required tools on it. For our size of community, you don't need more pieces of apparatus out there than that. It's getting, when we were working with the MD and having to go further out, you're 40 minutes to an hour out of the community, that would be the benefits on that side.
Right, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Chief. You gave us a timeline of about 24 months to 48 months for
Correct, sir.
delivery.
Correct, sir.
Can you be a little more accurate than that?
I would love to be. I phoned around to all the dealerships, and what's happening is as people come into this budget cycle, wherever we fit in, their current vision of what's coming off the production line is in those ranges. So it all depends what products you want, what lines you want, and it's not like ordering a Ford or a Dodge pickup. It takes more time, and they basically build these right from scratch.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, Chief. I think next we'll be moving to engineering and public works, and Mr. Egan will present this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chris Egan. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Before you are three groups of projects. As a high-level explanation, the first three items, this is, the 44th Avenue intersection improvement. This was actually brought forward by council some time ago and asked to be priced and brought forward during the capital review. And so this is the improvements to that particular intersection, surface improvements. The asphalt milling and overlay program, the surface works, are both annual programs that reoccur, and we use this money to repair. The surface works is mostly for sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, making the water flow, and then asphalt milling and overlay is an annual program to address that particular set of infrastructures. The next two items, the traffic line painter and the zero-turn mower, those are two pieces of equipment that we currently have. Both of them, the one painter doesn't work, and the mower needs replacement. It's at the end of its life too. So these are items that that we have in Public Works, and we need to maintain and use to perform our maintenance programs. The South Regional Storm Drainage Commitment, that's a three-phase program that Council has previously reviewed and consented to be co-participants in with the MD and other partners. And so this is the phase one, our portion of the phase one commitment to undertake that engineering work. The cast iron replacement, this was the project that last year was pushed in consideration of the Clarifier project. It's a major capital improvement. It takes up 2 blocks in the south end of town. It includes all the deep infrastructure, asphalt, sidewalks and curbs, and street lighting if required in that particular section of town. The lagoon sludge removals, the 3 cells, these are our industrial wastewater lagoons across the river, where all of their industrial wastewater goes and is treated there. This is basically an efficiency requirement. Happens about every 10 years or so. And this is for all 3 lagoons. There's several options in the package to defer, but this would be strictly a utility funded cost. And then downtown sanitary pipe relining and cleaning program is an ongoing program that we ask for dollars for each year in order to continue work either cleaning and then if required relining particular portions of the infrastructure under the ground in the downtown core area.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Mr. Egan. So for the pipe relining and cleaning, why are we just focused for the downtown? Are we not doing this in other areas of the community too, where it potentially could be, older infrastructure also?
So we do a variety of different things. So right now we're in other areas of the community, we're doing flushing work and camera work. So we do identify issues and problems. We bring those forward as separate items and capital requirements. The downtown area, because of its age and the significant impact as far as the concentration of restaurants and other entities that sometimes put things down the sewer lines that they shouldn't, cause extra cleaning focus and components. So, and then the age of the infrastructure and the impact on if we have to dig streets up, we'd rather be proactive and do the relining, which means we don't have to dig the ground up if we catch it early enough to do that replacement work. And then it adds another 30 years to the life of that particular infrastructure.
Sure, you bet.
So just to further, there is a program in other areas of the community that just don't require it at this time, and you bring those forward as required.
So the example of the 2 blocks in the south end, replacing that ductile iron pipe, that would be an example of us coming at something specifically, identifying problems, and then bringing them forward. So we maintain condition assessments for all the linear assets, and that helps us prioritize projects and bring them forward to council.
Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth? All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Egan, I'd like to address the lagoon sludge removal. There's 3 cells. Were these cells cleaned last time at the same time, or were they staged? Do you remember, or do you know?
I wasn't here, and I don't have the answer to that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I find it very interesting that all 3 lagoons have to be done at the same time, or do they not?
If they were all cleaned at the same time, then they would be sludging up at the same time. I'm not sure of the assessment work that was done, but I could look into that and come back to council. There's also some options about, we can do 1 cell at a time.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, follow up, because I'm pretty sure that they were not done at the same time. That makes no sense to me. But if that's the case, of course, you could stage them, right?
Yeah.
So then you wouldn't have to include them in the capital budget for 2024, all 3 of them.
No, we can do 1 a year. There's no impact in doing just 1 a year. Typically, on average, we anticipate them being done once every decade is typically the lifespan of them. But if council decided that they only wanted to do them 1 a year sequentially for the next 3 years or so, then absolutely we can accommodate that. There's a little bit of extra mobilization and demobilization costs, but.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, follow up if I may. I'm not opposed to doing all 3, but I'm very curious to know whether they were done in total at the same time, the last time they were done, which is 10 years ago, you said, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't think was that long ago, but.
Yeah, they typically need to be done every 10 years, but I'll find out exactly when each cell was cleaned last.
Thank you.
I know we have that
You bet.
information.
Just to follow up, my end, just wondered how long would it take to do a cell, for example, roughly? Any particular timeline on a cell completion for that?
No, I don't. It's measured in weeks, not months.
Oh, okay, all right. So it's not a couple of day thing for
No.
sure. It's a little more involved than that.
Yes,
Okay.
it'd be a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks, but depending on
Okay.
the equipment that the contractor brings,
Right.
and that depends on which contractor is actually hired.
All right, all
how
right,
fast
thank
they
you.
can push and-
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Bruin, yes. Councilor Bruin, go ahead. Councilor Bruin?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, with the three sludge ponds, the cleaning of those, it would make more sense to me to do all three at once, save the cost of moving the crew in and out again. So I can see the benefits of doing it all at once and instead of staggering them. And we know that all three have to be done every 10 years. So I think unless it's a time thing, how long it takes to do all three is too long, but I would prefer to just do them all at once.
All right, thank you. Councilor McLean?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of questions. The asphalt and like the overlay program, do we find that what we're asking for is enough? And I'm not trying to say that we spend more money or not, but I just find a lot of people complain about the roads and the sidewalks. And so I'm just wondering if you think this is enough for the yearly spend.
So no, we do intentionally ask for less as we try and fit the work into the budget. What we will be doing ideally next year is coming forward with a longer range planning view perspective that would look forward 10 years and provide you the information, both amounts and budgets, that the condition assessments and a longer range planning perspective would provide. But it will be more than what we bring forward every year, for sure.
Just an example, I think we added a roughly $300,000 for some extra problem areas that we weren't expecting due to the last winter, correct?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of dependent on what Mother Nature does to us any given winter season.
So there's
what comes
two,
out of
yeah,
that.
then there's, if I can clarify, last year's program, so that's surface works, where we're just dealing with just the asphalt. And that's patching kind of by the square meter area, and that can be a little bit more budget driven. The other project that we've submitted for the south end, those two blocks at $1.5 million, that's when you're seeing us renewing infrastructure, the deep utilities, and the road, and sidewalks and curbs. And so that typically runs about $1 million a block, a frontage block. So both sides of the street, but only from intersection to intersection. So those types of activities will need to be done at some point in time as the infrastructure completely runs out of life and there isn't any maintenance or corrective maintenance work that we can do to make it last any longer.
Right, all right. Thank you. Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think last year, that was kind of my comment too, is like, when was the last time we increased this budget? You know, are we working with 2003 numbers, you know, kind of thing? And I know it's hard as administration to actually keep on asking for money, but if you could propose something that's reasonable, I'd appreciate that.
It's always the reasonable word is always the tough one.
Yeah, define reasonable, exactly, right, yeah. All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Mr. Thibault?
Just for some maybe further information, Chris, what was last year's budget for those two programs that we're proposing this year? Do you recall, or Mr. Orwa, do you recall? I believe it was less than this, or we spent less than this. So this is a minor increase, but it's not a massive increase. But I don't know if any one of you know those numbers for sure.
I don't recall those numbers, to be honest with you.
I think there's a slight increase. The 300, I think that one was around 250. That's what has been in the budget through and through. So there's that 50,000 out there. Now, the other one where you have 500, I think the actual, when I looked at the actual, it was coming to around 464,000. So there's also a slight increase on the surface works, just a little bit on the surface works. But what has been fresh and vivid in everybody's mind is that asphalt milling has been 250. So I think there's an additional 50,000 added to there as well.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. The next is recreation, and Mr. Martin is here to present.
Mr. Brian Martin, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Recreation is proposing the following 7 capital requests. We're looking for a UTV replacement. That would be one of those Kubota type trucksters. Last year we had a transmission differential go out on one, so we're looking to replace that unit. We have the hot water pressure washer. Right now we just use a cold water pressure washer to wash the stage for Cornfest and the bleachers and things, graffiti, and it doesn't really have the power to, or the heat to take graffiti off or some of the tree sap that we experience. So we're looking for a hot water pressure washer just to clean the stage in those graffiti areas that we run into. The skate park cement would be to replace the areas on the side, on the wings, where you've seen some of the brick. What's been happening is people have been pulling the bricks up and they throw them in the dump barrel at the spray park, and it poses a safety hazard for people using the spray park. So we've gone and pulled them all up. We're looking to reconcrete the whole areas where the brick was so that it looks complete and finished again. So, and it'll reduce the safety hazards that we're experiencing. The flat deck trailer is just to move equipment around. We don't have a unit to move some of our aerators and our groomers around town efficiently. We're just driving them around right now. So we're looking to load them on a flat deck to move them around. The Legion Park irrigation upgrades, we have some mainline problems. It's causing some low level leaking at the far south end of the Legion Park. And so because of that, the top end near the Cadet Hall isn't getting watered well enough. So we're looking to compensate and repair that section so we can get the hill and the Cadet Hall side greener and irrigated. Our water slide, we've had many repairs done on it over the years. We have a water slide repair person come in, and he usually refiberglasses or repairs the fiberglass areas. But it's getting to some areas where it's irreparable. We're going to have to start looking at replacing some sections of the slide, and we were looking to just make that a safety issue also, so that we can repair those and make it better for the young ones using it. Our auditorium table and chair replacement, right now we have probably too small of chairs. Some people larger, like me, even when you're sitting on the chairs, when they're attached, they you sort of spill over onto the next chair when we have to attach them. So we're looking to get a better chair system for in the auditorium with the connectors that are in the feet, so that we can connect the rows more efficiently and have the right size so it's more comfortable to enjoy shows in our auditorium.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just reading about the water slide, and your intention is to increase the size so that it can be a double occupancy slide?
Yeah, right now we can only allow one person to go down. You can't go with your child.
Right.
So if we had the full budget, we're looking to upsize it so that we can have parents ride with their children if need be.
Right, and that would satisfy all the requirements to make it a.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
To increase it. Great, thanks.
All right, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just follow up with that. I was told by lifeguards that because the pool at the bottom, you can't have double riders.
That's also true. I think the capacity, if we enlarge it, it lessens the volume, which won't push you out as hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilor Renford.
Right, regarding the skate park, so you're just talking about all the brick stuff. Oh, sorry. You're just talking about all the bricks that are kind of like on the sidewalk. You're just gonna go to cement.
Yeah, there's some
Right.
bricks that were more decorative and then some fake grass that was in with the bricks. And the skaters have been pulling that up and the fake grass is sort of damaged too. So we're just gonna fill the wings in where those areas were.
And we haven't put too much into that over the last bit, like we haven't re-cemented anything in there.
No, we've only done maintenance on the graffiti.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Brian. Any other questions for Mr. Orwa as well? None whatsoever. All right. Councilor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Orwell, you're going to explain some funding proposals or something? Where are you going to?
Yes, thank you very much. So I was coming to the back end after knowing exactly where all the projects were leading us to. Because the key here for us to run these projects is to make sure that we have enough money. Now, I'll start with, I need to get up. Can I sit down? I'll start with the MSI first. So MSI, when we were out there with Mr. Thibault, when we talked to the grant advisors, we were told that nothing is going to decrease. So we'll get what we got in 2022, but we're not very sure how much extra we will get. So for budget purposes, I just did put in what I know. And you can see I've just tagged that money to fire because last time when we were buying the big truck, we used MSI and there was no question when we sent in the application. So that would be an easy one for me. Then going to federal gas tax, which is now the community building fund, last year, again, we got around 525, and the assurance we got was you are likely to get the same amount or some extra. So I went to the lowest amount as well because I don't want to overestimate my revenue and then eventually I get less. And then other grants, you can see I've not plugged any number because we keep on applying for grants. And the whole idea is when we get those grants, we utilize them first before we go into our reserves. So I'm not very sure what, right now there are so many grants that are in the pipeline. We might get some or we might not. And if we get them before the final approval of the budget, you'll see me plugging in those numbers. Now, that is the other sources. Then, we also looked at long-term debt. Now, long-term debt, if you heard when Mr. Egan was explaining about the 45th Avenue cast iron sanitary replacement and the 3 cells, they're more of utility-based. So we also plugged in those ones, assuming that things might work out, but we also wanted to find out from council if that is something that they can approve. So I will just give illustrations on LTD, that is the long-term debt. Any other, I've plugged everything under reserves. So what that means is every year, as you know, we get about 2 million coming from the tax base. That's the one we call contributions to capital from the tax base. So if we were to do 2 million and you look under the reserves column, you see we have 2,876,000. That means I should be able to, get at least 876 from our current reserves. So we didn't plug in those extras, but we put them under LTD. So based on that, let me just illustrate something here to see. I'll take control. So if we were to look at it from utility base, that is to fund those two, because when we go for long-term debt, we have to figure out how we're going to service those debts. So we can service those debts through utility, or we can service those debts by just plugging them as part of the tax base where we'll be getting money to service those debts. So we wanted to float in some ideas here, and Mr. Tybalt, you can jump in anytime as I move along, because it's something we've really beat to death along the way. The first one, 650, and the 650 is the removal of 3 cells, so it's only 650,000. So the first one you can see, if we were to get that money today, because we are, sorry, I have to get this one here. Okay. That better? Now you can see that I did the first one 5 years. If we were to get the 650 from Alberta Capital Finance over 5 years, and we pay biannual, that's twice a year, the payment will be 151,000. So we have to figure out where will we get that money to pay for that long-term debt. Now, if we don't go for long-term debt, then those projects, we have to fund them from reserves. So this is the first area of looking at where to fund them from. Now you can see when we did the first one, if we were to get it today from Alberta Capital Finance, 5 years, the interest rate is 5.66%. And that gives me about 151,000 payment every year. So you can see the cost of borrowing there is 105,000. So what that means, if I were to get this money from reserves, I will save 105,000, which is the cost of borrowing. But if we want to at least reserve something in our reserves for future use, just in case of emergency, then this is the other option. And then I said, well, if that is too much, what if we do 10 years on those Lagoon 3 cells? And again, make it big a little bit. So the interest now comes down because you're spreading out the term. This is 10 years. So 10 years comes to 85,000. That is for the Lagoon 3 cells. But where the utility comes in is this. Now I looked at the current number of accounts that we have today. You can see residential customers, we have about 3,049. And then non-residential, we have about 333. So we have a total of 3,422. And that is how we got even the last infrastructure fee that we brought before you. So if I take the total cost of borrowing and divide it by the total number of customers, you can see I get about 220.75. That will be spread out per person throughout the term of the loan. I break it down per year. I divide it by 5 years, 44.15. I break it down to per month. I divide that by 12, $3.68. So if we were to go the utility way that we service this debt through utility, then every person will be paying 3.68. But what about if I break it in terms of residential and non-residential? So the same percentage distribution that we used 44% for residential, and we used 56% for non-residential. So if we take those percentages, that means to service this loan for 5 years, the addition in the utility per month would be $1.62, and then the non-residentials will pay $2.06. So over the 5 years, if we go the utility way, then that would service the debt. But if that is not practical, then we go back to get money from the reserves. Do you want to add something, Mr. Thibault?
Mr. Thibault, you got it.
That's my cue, I guess. It's time for me to add something. So the reason why administration had gone down this road and brought it forward was because we were looking and had talked to council about utilities supporting themselves. So if we truly want utilities to support themselves, we would do long-term debt that shows up on a utility bill, and we would have a line in there that says it's for X. Something's for the clarifier, for example, which is what we're currently doing. This one could be for the sludge removal of the lagoons. The $1.150 million project is basically divided in half. Some of it is utility work, about half, and about half is not utility work. So that's where the other $750,000 or so is coming from. So that was the methodology. It's certainly totally up to what council's believes should have happened, but that's why administration had brought it forward, is because we were talking about a utility model that is self-supporting. I don't know if there's any questions around that or anything, but that's where we're sitting at with why we're proposing this type of cost recovery.
The same methodology again, this is for the cast iron. You can see for 5 years term, interest remains the same, but of course the total cost would be 900,000. Now, I also looked at a scenario whereby I spread it over 10 years. Now the interest rate comes down because we spread out the term. And you can see now the breakdown. So the first one, 10 years, we'll be looking at $1.10 for non-residential, and then $1.40 for, sorry, $1.10 for residential and $1.40 for non-residential. This is just one way of thinking of how to service the debt. The other way would be we have to dig into our reserves to manage those programs. So we wanted just to float those two areas. And remember, we're also looking for grants another way. So depending on the best way to do it, that's what we'll want to bring forward before council, before anything is approved.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Orwell. That's very interesting. Of course, my question would be, comes out of the same pocket, right? So, I never liked the utility infrastructure fee because everybody paid equally. But some of those people were heavier users of the utility than others. So I call that an unfair tax. It's not, whenever you tax equally, it's an unfair tax, in my view. Secondly, I would be in favor of this idea if it's commensurate with a lesser than required property tax rate, because it's all comes from the same person, right, John? So are we taking that into consideration, or is there just another place to dig some money out of somebody?
So that is the last statement I was about to make. And the statement I put down here, as we go through this, let's also consider that in April, we'll be setting up the mill rates. Now we have to compare this against the mill rates. Where will we put it? Do we go this route and make it flat? Or what is the best way? So I started this discussion this time a little earlier so that we can digest before we approve anything.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you. Any other questions whatsoever? Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I find this to be a very interesting discussion, and I thank Mr. Over for that, because I think thinking out of the box is what we should be doing anyway. And I think in the process of budgeting, us discussing as a council this early, I think is beautiful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, and I do appreciate this because it does put things into different perspectives of how, you know, people, how can we make it affordable and plottable, maybe that's not the word, but more pleasing to our taxpayers. And by doing it utility rate, a flat fee, then everyone pays the same, is my understanding. If it was a tax, property tax, then it's based on the value of your home. And then we're just charging property tax and then people pay different. Is that correct? Is that the way, different ways of thinking about it?
So there are two things here. The property tax will be based on the value of your house. And then remember, again, what will be driving that mill rate, that rate, is with the assessment. But in this one here, it is strictly utility, just like we did the infrastructure fee. So in the bill, you'll be seeing, let's say if we were to go through the first one, you'll be seeing in the bill another $1.62 as part of part of the utility bill that you'll get, but it will now be earmarked for the lagoon sales. But remember, as Councillor Baker put it, again, there is that property tax element that also comes in, which is based on the value of your property.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question for Councillor Beckering. So, like you said, that having it a flat rate, it's not necessarily fair because there are heavier users. So, what would your proposal be then to be, perhaps to adjust it based on how much usage?
Councillor Beckering?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Council Firth, thank you for the question, because I think from my perspective, taxes and levies should be based on usage. Taxes are based on value, right? Whether it's commercial or residential, it's based on value. That's fine. Use of utilities is also based on a flat rate like we have. However, if you have 16 kids, your water usage is going to be higher than if you have no kids. So therefore, you are paying more, obviously. But if you have an infrastructure fee like we got for the clarifier, everybody pays $6, whether you have 16 kids or no kids. I'm just using this as an example, but I think that's an unfair tax. I really do. I think taxes should be based on usage. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
All right, absolutely.
Okay, and I can appreciate that. And I do prefer an infrastructure fee to be attached to the utilities. I think that is a much more transparent way of dealing with things, because then the fee is attached to exactly what we're upgrading, rather than, when you just increase taxes, like, I can't remember who said it, but it all comes out of the same pocket. It's all coming from the taxpayers one way or the other, but I find this to be a much clearer way of communicating that.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Geez, we're spearheading a conversation on some very interesting things, but my only comment would be making it fair for, different families, for utilities. Unfortunately, everyone's taking the brunt of historical infrastructure. So this isn't really based on, my understanding isn't based on usage and current usage. It's just something that needs to be replaced. It's projects for the whole community, and that's why I would find this more palatable, again, that word, on the utility portion of your bill.
All right, thank you. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we took it out of reserves, what would the reserves be left with?
I did say that there are three ways of funding these projects. Number one is the grants, which I always prefer, because somebody is giving me money to utilize. Number two would be, of course, the contributions from capital coming from the tax base. Then the last one is the question, which is the reserves. We can still go down into the reserves and finance it. Is only that is going to reduce our reserves substantially. And the reason being, just as Mr. Egan explained, we have old infrastructure. And we do not know exactly when one major one will break out. So my suggestion has been, my recommendation has been, let's leave a little bit on the reserves just in case something like that hits us. Because if it hits us so hard like that, we'll have to run to borrow money. And the cost of borrowing is going up. But to answer your questions, without really, quoting numbers which might follow me in the future, is that it's doable. We can still go back into the reserves and get that money. But the only problem we have is we are diminishing our reserves. So in case something major comes up, the only place we can go for is long-term borrowing. But I think we can go into the reserves. That's the council's direction.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rappert?
Let me just make it very clear, I think, for Councillor McLean as well. Reserves to give you a definite number becomes very difficult around this time because there's in and out movements of money taking place. So we need to put them together to see how movements take place. Now, if you go to the financial statements today, when you look at our financial statements, you'll see over 14 million out there in the reserves in our financial statements. But since that time, there have been in and out movements as we process our projects and other things. So towards the end of the next quarter, especially when we get into with the audit committee coming up in 2 weeks, there's some specific definite numbers that we'll come up with because we have to do that analysis. And I think at that point, I'll get back to you. The audit committee will report back to council exactly what it is. But what I do know, yes, we could go that route, but there'll be very little left.
All right, thank you. Councilor Redford?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So John, using this utility way would be kind of offsetting and not putting it into a property tax, right? You know what I mean? You would more look at these for the major projects. So you'd break it down that it would be more fair in a thought because, 344.2 would split it evenly. Now I get each household might use it different, but at least it would be per household rather than on the value of your house. You'd be fixing that project. So if I owned a house two times the, assessment value, I would be throwing more in. Would I be using more utility? Probably not. If I had the same amount of people living in my house, along with, I just see it as it's easier to do it that way. It looks more going to your way, Garth, of looking at it like, even. I think that would be the most even you could, because if it was property tax, it would just be based on value. It would never be based on the user.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, I think we had a great discussion overall at this stage. So at this stage, there's no motion required, correct? This is strictly for informational and update purposes. All right, with that, I would just ask for a motion to move into the meal break then prior to our delegation. Right, Mr. Tebow?
There is still the standing items. I'm not sure if you want to get that done before we take off.
Okay, sure, we can do that too, yep. You go right ahead. Standing item, council request is next item 7.2. Mr. Tebow?
As soon as Mr. O'Rourke lets me, I'll drive again. Oh, it's big. So there really is not a whole lot to report on. Everything is still in progress. These are some of the requests that came previously, the oldest one being on the top from Councillor Rudd. And I know I mentioned it last time, but next time we will have an answer for this one. And the other one's still in progress at this point. So unless there was any additions, this is
all right
where we're at.
Any questions related to what's on paper there and or any additional council standing item requests currently? All right. With that, just a motion to move into the meal break to 5 o'clock for our delegation arrival. Councilor Sorensen?
I'll make that motion to go into our lunch break.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Brown?
In favor.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Unanimously. Thank you. Carried. All right, if we could reconvene the meeting, please, and on to item number 8, delegations. Item 8.1, Family Community Service waiver requests. Mr. Tebow.
I believe we've got Ms. Caitlin Weaver here who's going to come and tell us what this is all about.
All right, thank you. Caitlin, welcome. Just press that button and it's, yep, you're
okay,
live.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. My name is Caitlin Weaver and I work for Family and Community Support Services. We are hosting on Friday, November 24th, a youth conference called the Creative youth creative conference, and it's going to be taking place in the Tabor Auditorium here. We're hoping for 60 youth to attend, 30 of whom will be from the Youth Do Crew, which is a leadership group. Some of the youth were here doing a delegation, I think, a month ago about the Little Free Pantry. So it'll be 30 youth who are in the Do Crew and 30 youth from other parts of the community, both in Tabor and in the region, kind of broader. So we are requesting a discounted rate to book the Tabor Auditorium, Green Room, and Gray Room for this Creative Leaders Youth Conference.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising for Caitlin? Councillor Beckering, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Caitlin.
Hello.
This, you had a tough time saying it, so will I. This is called Creative Leaders Youth Conference.
Correct.
Is this the first one you're going to have of this type?
Yes, it is. We
And
actually
why Tabor, please?
we picked Tabor out of the region because it offers like the best space, I think, and it's pretty central for our region. We're going to offer free transportation for the youth who come from other parts. We're hoping that if we are able to offer it again, we will host it in a different community so it's equitable for our region. Because our region is County Warner, Lethbridge County, and MD of Tabor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mayor. And Councillor Beckering did take part of my question as if it was your first annual or not. I do believe in the cause, and I think it's a great thing that you're holding, and I wish you great success.
Thank you.
And I would support waiving
right.
some of the fee.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising for Caitlin? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would make a motion that council approves a waiver in the amount of $483 with funds to come from the community grant program.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councillor Brune?
Thank you so much. We really
Favor.
appreciate it. Oh,
All right, Councillor Brune, carried unanimously, yeah. And thank you, Caitlin, for your presentation. All the best of luck to you. Look forward to that.
Thank you.
All
Thank
as
you so
well.
much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 9, media inquiries. Mr. Thibault?
Same as usual, there are no media inquiries.
All right, thank you. With that, ask for a motion to move into closed session then, please. Councillor McLean, motion on the table. All in favor? Councillor Brune? Councillor Brune, in favor?
Yes.
All right, carried now.
That council directs administration to proceed with the sale of 38 Meadows lots and 3 Meadows homes for the total sale price of $3,207,600 plus GST. And that council also directs administration to proceed with the purchase of 32.74 acres of bare land at 5300 80th Avenue in the Eureka Industrial Park for the price of $3,207,600 plus GST. And that council directs administration to pay Douglas Bergen and Associates 50% per lot, approximately $1.1926,600,000 plus GST as per the Meadows development contract.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Sorry.
To Bergen. That's what he's talking about, the Meadows development contract. Aren't you talking about the Meadows development contract, the 1.1?
Oh, that's a different unit. That's just the 33 Meadows. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Was that one?
Okay, so this is accurate as far as we know? All right. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councillor Bruin?
Reluctantly in favor.
All right. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.2. Councillor Renford.
Yeah, I'd like to, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that council accepts the land sale offer of $330,000 for 2.4 acres of land at 6920 64th Street, including services of property line and temporary access to the property over winter and roads to be put in the spring of 2024.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Just need a motion to close the meeting. Councillor McLean, motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you.
That's 3:30.